today we got to play The Hunger with the high stake expansion. So I was super excited to play the expansion, hoping that it would add a lot more. But before we get into it, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell because board games are amazing. And that's what we do here at Legends of Nirvana. Randy, can you tell us a little bit more about this expansion?
Very little, because this is not yet released. It's a Q4 expected release for this year. We got it at Gen Con, so we got a pre-release. It is currently got a Board Game Geek rating of not available and a rank of not available. So it's so new that there's no ratings or rankings yet on Board Game Geek. There's other than some individuals who put their own scores up. 2 to 6 player game, 60 minutes average length. With the expansion, I'd say it's longer than that. But base game, you could probably play in 60 minutes, no problem. But with the expansion, it adds a little bit more meat to the game. I'd probably make it more like 90 to 120 minutes.
Now, I tried to teach this game, or I didn't try, I succeeded at Gen Con twice with the base game, and it took us about 2 hours each time. But that is with learning curve. So I know this because people were waiting to start their event based on us finishing it. So
the design is by Richard Garfield. Art is by Marta Ivanova, Jocelyn Jacques Millet, and Semyon Proskuryakov. I probably completely butchered that name. Published by Renegade Games Studios. The MSRP for the expansion is $30. Card House has it on pre-order for $20.49, and that seems to be the cheapest I see it for. Miniature Market has it for $21 on pre-order, so not much difference. So, yeah, it's not available now. Our review of this is going to be strictly focused on The Hunger High Stakes. We actually have a video already on the channel for The Hunger, so if you want to look at the base game, we'll reference it throughout this video, but there's a review already up on the channel for The Hunger, so you can check that out.
All right, so let's talk about quality components like as we do. No changes here, right? So they were at least consistent with it. So when you blend the two together, you don't see any real differences. So I think this score's about the same, which is a 7.
Well, yeah, but the components you get are additional cards. There's several different sets of cards that you get that represent the events and the threats, and then basically cards that let you assign them, and you get new starter sets for the expansion. That's the main thing. There's a few cardboard bits that are added, some health meter tokens, and some mission tokens, and there are some additional treasures that are added, but not much else is added to the game. Quality-wise, I agree, it's totally the same. There's no difference. 7 is what we gave it before. It's still 7. All
right, so let's talk about theme. So the theme, I think, actually gets upgraded with the expansion, and there's a couple of reasons why. So before, you're a vampire traveling around trying to get this artifact, and in so doing, obviously, you get a little hungry. But what the expansion adds is, well, guess what? When you start feeding, people start to notice, right? They're missing some of their loved ones, and eventually there's vampires that get in. Vampire hunters.
Yeah, they start fighting
There are
back.
werewolves. And they're not liking the fact that you're in their hunting ground or that you're killing their family and friends. So for that, I think thematically, I think it increases. So because not only do you have to worry about how fast you can go, right? You also have this attack element that adds to it being a little, I think, more realistic in this vampire-esque world that we're in. Now, the only thing, a little sad note on theme, was these hearts are not very thematic. I just want to call it out because overall, I think they did great. I just don't know why they made the hearts. I don't know. It just seems a little cute and fun.
Well, especially since you're adding them. And you start out with the antagonist, or I guess, protagonist, depending on how you want to look at it. The vampire hunters and the werewolves having a health life meter, if you will, of ranging, I think, from 3 to 6 is what we saw. But that goes down, and you go down by adding those hearts, which doesn't make a lot of sense. It's kind of the opposite.
Well, I mean, it's damage dealt is on the card. I get it because there's a lot of other games that do that. I just don't know why they chose this cute pink heart to
it seems like they would have had, attack, because like they added wounds to your deck, and the wounds are represented by slashes, similar to what you might see from like Wolverine.
This year's one.
Yeah, so they've added these wound cards that have slashes, so why not have some kind of slash token or something, bite token of some kind to put
and
on
then maybe just hurt was easy to do. I don't know. That lost a little bit for me, but overall, actually, I think it added quite a bit to the story, having these threats out there. And plus, because you get, well, that's more gameplay, but we'll talk about that. But overall, I think they did a fantastic job. So last time I scored it,
we gave it a 9.
We gave it a 9. I think it deserves a little more than that. I just don't know how much more. I'll go on 9.5. I think this was excellent.
I don't think it adds enough to go even a half point. I'm going to keep it at a 9 for me. I think it's fine. I just think there's emaugh detraction from like the glossy board and different things that I can't go higher than a 9. I still think it's a great game. From a thematic standpoint,
Yeah, I mean, my problem is, and I agree, it's like, okay, well, they did better with the theme now. The store is more inclusive. I love the fact that they added this element to it, but how much higher do you go? And that's the hard thing. It's really hard to define.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's slightly better, but I don't think it's enough to justify even a half point for me, because I think the art is the same. I love the art. That's why I gave it a 9 before. I like the whole premise of the game. It's a fun vampire theme, even though I don't like vampire games in general. This one is fun and cutesy, and it's not too overly heavy.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about the rulebook.
Okay, now this is where things suffer a bit. The rulebook is 8 pages long, and it assumes things about the first rulebook in some places. In other cases, it restates things, and it's not consistent at all. And there were a lot of holes created by the new rules that we've ran into. There was no place to find an answer. There's no FAQs up on the Renegade site. There's none up on the Board Game Geek site. So we just had to house rule as we were playing, because, for example, one of the big things in the first game that prevented situations is when you landed on another player, you automatically would bump them one direction, way or towards the castle. And in this case, now when you land on them, you have the attack option where you can attack the player, where you still bump them in that case, but you can potentially gain some victory points in the form of blood by doing it. But when you land on them, you have the option not to. And if you don't have attack, you can't. So you end up landing on the same space. Well, there's a whole lot of rules around turn order, around effects from the events that come up, and if you're on the same space, who does it affect? Doesn't really clarify. It doesn't tell you it affects everybody on the space. It doesn't tell you if what the order is. At the beginning of the game, since you're all in the same space, you determine turn order based upon the cards that you played for the round, but that's not really in there. There's places where it references the score chart and who's furthest back on the score chart, but again, it's not clearly stated in the rule book. Another problem is during the setup of this game, it was very confusing, because as you're going through, it's, again, highlighting bits and pieces of the setup in this book. In some cases, it's restating things that were clear in the other book. And in some cases, it's saying add in the pieces from the new set, which is kind of self-explanatory. If you're you're setting it up, you're going to shuffle in the new missions and so on. So some of it was overstated. But then there was the new features with the setting up of the different threats was very understated. It was like breezed through, and that was where you needed the help. I mean, they had an example, but it didn't really clearly state. And the event deck was a similar situation. And it also, again, has contents, no pictures, just the contents. And for the cards, for the event cards, it's got 15 game event, 20 turn event, and 1 15th turn. But they don't show the backs. So when you go to set up the event deck, you have to go and count all the cards to figure out which one is which one is the game events, and which one's the turn events. It's not as clear as it should be on the set.
I mean, I don't think that this game is exceptionally hard, but you had quite a bit of difficulty.
Yeah.
Because I went and took a nap, and I woke up from my nap, and they were still at it trying to figure it out, which is very unusual.
Yeah, it took us a while to get through it. I mean, and it's only an 8-page rule book, but it was just the confusion of trying to set this up when the the rules were kind of piecemeal because they assumed bits were in this other rule book, but it didn't clearly delineate, okay, which ones are going to be here and which ones are going to be here. And then the new pieces, they were just kind of breezed through where you would expect there would be detail. And then, didn't really understand where you were supposed to put the threats because it wasn't clear, and I can't give this, we give it a 6.5 on the Rulebook 4 because some issues with the Rulebook that were similar to this one's worse. I'm going to give this a 4. I just don't think it's up to the level of Catan's Rulebook. I can't give it a 5. It's not very good. We still worked through it. We got through the rules, but we had to make some decisions.
So now let's talk about gameplay. So basically, what did the new expansion add? So it expanded new missions, right? So basically, these are end-of-game victory points. Some are instant benefits. All right, so one of the major differences is that this particular expansion adds events. So basically, at the beginning of the round, you'll flip over, and it will tell you something to do. So for example, move all vampire 2 spaces further from the castle. Now this is a real bummer because it's right there at the end of the game. And you're going to have to somehow get, you burned up.
Yeah, I had several instances where the events burned me. And literally at the end, it burned me.
Yeah. All right, so they stay on the same path if they come past the crossing. And then the other piece of it is that they've got this color here. So we're going to look over here on the side and look at it as still available. Now, the person with the least amount of victory points, which is Randy, because he burned up, he's going to place on one of the rows here.
So I would put it here. I'm going to flip the threat. In this case, it's a vampire hunter, and it goes here. In the case of a werewolf, it would actually eat any humans that are in this final position on the board.
So you need to read the text as you flip them over. Now, this vampire hunter, he's going to make sure that his row is safe. Now, however, I'm still kind of peckish, and sometimes I get hungry, okay? Can't help it. It's part of being a vampire. So if I were to go hunt, so basically I move whatever I need to move, and I decide to go hunt, I'm going to pay the associated cost like I did before, so 3, 2, and 1. I am going to pick up this 2 here. I'm going to go here. Oh, but look, because I was hunting in his area, I then have him, he's starting to chase me. Yep. And he is starting to come after me. And
that frees up the Harry Potter-esque themed icons for going back down here. Because if it's in use up here on this board and the card comes up with an event, it will not trigger another threat until somebody's claimed it. So, you potentially have some reprieve from threats when that happens.
Yeah. Then I'm going to put the human that I hunted in the discard pile, like I've always done before. And it says add 1 wound to your discard pile because of him, because he's sneaky and he has a pointy knife. All right. So he did a little bit of damage. Now I have this person. Now, as soon as I put him in my player area, he does 2 damage. So I have to put another 2 wounds. Okay. And then, well, you know what? Actually, I am out of my deck, so I'm going to have to shuffle my discard in my deck. Okay, and when I do so, he attacks again. So I get another 2 wounds to get of my pile, which is very, very annoying. Now, everyone's going to take their turn, and then the following round, I'm going to try again. I'm going to take my turn. So this is a little bit different. So we're going to do this. We're going to pull our 3 people. I was hoping for a wound. I am not this fortunate. Here we go. Sorry. All right. So I'm going to pull out a wound, and this says wound, draw 1 card, heal if you hunt at least 1 human. If you lead at the end of the game, it's worth negative victory points. So obviously you don't want to do that. So I am going to draw 1 card. This says draw 1 card if your threat is in your play area. Again, there's a threat there. Okay, so now I've got these 4 cards that I can use. Now, if I'm going to count like I normally did, 4, 5, 6, 7, I have 7 speed. All right, draw 1 card if I also have a human, which I do. That's another human, useless to me. Haha. All right, so now I have 7 speed. Now, that means I can move 7 movement, or I can move and partially hunt humans. The other thing is I have 3 damage here. So I'm actually going to use my 3. Oh, first I got to move. So I can't, well, we're pretending we're at the beginning. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That leaves me 2 movement. So then I am going to hunt again. I have to hunt a human to get rid. So if I were to hunt this one, I would then be able to, at the end of my turn, discard my wound card. Okay. Don't forget to take your victory points when you hunt. That's something I didn't do this round or this round, just to kind of let you know. But then I also have 3 extra attack. I'm going to use that 3 extra attack. It does not kill the hunter. It just does him damage. Just say I put 3 on here. And then I'll have to keep going until eventually he dies. But just remember, every time you shuffle your deck, you're going to get more damage. And these wounds are actually not too bad. Like, I was kind of nervous at the beginning. I was like, man, these are going to be awful. They weren't horrible because they let you draw a card. So you at least always have 3 cards that, I mean, unless you get 3 humans, which I did once. But still, at least you get to do that. And then you could immediately remove them if you get to hunt a human. So they weren't as bad as I thought they were going to be, but they were still a hindrance, right? Because they filled up your deck and things like that. And it was actually harder to get rid of them right there towards the end because we had a couple of threats and you're trying to get those last bit of victory points. So with that.
But on the positive side of taking threats, there are boons for defeating the threats because if you defeat a vampire hunter, you get a reward. Yeah. It depends on what's on there, but sometimes it's a bonus mission, sometimes it's a bonus treasure. They have different rewards. On the werewolf side, however, you can get some major rewards.
But they're a lot more hard to get rid of too. They have a higher health count.
But if you defeat them, because they eat all of these humans that come into their area, that adds to their victory point count for each human they ate. And as a double bonus, you also get to count those humans towards any scoring you have at the end for different suits.
Yeah.
Which is really nice.
Yeah, so that's super helpful. I think that's actually one of the reasons why I win is because I destroyed all 3 werewolves.
They all go to your digested pile directly, so they don't take up space in your deck, which is super nice.
Which is huge. So talking about it, so there is one thing. So there is a strategy about rushing to get the rose and then meandering your way back. Getting the wounds kind of prevents you from doing that a little bit because you want to get rid of them. You don't want to get stuck with them. So I noticed I was hunting a lot more than I would have necessarily done. But I think one of the reasons why is I actually got a special mission for getting werewolves. So I ended up picking up all the werewolves I can, but then it ended up getting wounds and forcing me to hunt, which ended up clogging down my deck a little bit because there's still that timing component of making sure you get home on time. Randy did not get home on time. You're not very good at this.
I have a 67% burn ratio in this game. So, I have a tendency to eat a lot. And I get a lot of 0 movements into my deck as a result. And I had some very unfortunate timing as far as events go. So, for example, you can get some of the people have basically poison pills when you eat them. I had a thing that was going to give me a lot of points for capturing the white category, which is like the homeowners or whatever. Whenever I got them, the end game bonus was for that. I had 2 bonuses for it in myself, so I was going to get a ton of points for them. So I was racking all of them up, but one of them happened to be a drunk. And when you get the drunks, anytime they come up in your deck, you have to move 4 spaces away from the castle. So my plan was I was 2 spaces away from a spot where I could digest someone from my deck. So I was going to immediately digest him and get him out of play. Well, the next event was shuffle your discard pile and your hand back into your deck and draw 3 new cards, which defeated my entire strategy of getting that out of my play. And it came up to bite me twice during the game where it pushed me away from the castle.
And you just didn't quite make it.
If it hadn't come up, I would have made it because I was just shy once again of getting there.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's just kind of that thing of this is, I like this game. And with the expansion, I like it better. Andrew agreed. So Andrew did get to play with us. And he agreed that he liked the expansion better. I think you did too, right?
Yeah, I do. I think it's a lot more maintenance, and you got to expect that extra, time. As long as you don't mind that extra maintenance, because one of the draws of the original game was it's quick, and you can get it to the table and teach it real quickly and play it, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. This extends the game slightly.
I still don't think with the new content, I don't think it extends its welcome, but I do think it's a little bit longer.
Yeah.
So you do have to keep that in mind. Like I don't necessarily know if I would bring the expansion with newer gamers. Like maybe some of the more,
But I think it adds some much needed meat to the game to make it, I think it makes it more hefty in a positive way. I think it's similar to what you get when you play Lords of Waterdeep and you add on the Skullport.
Or viticulture and adding Tuscany.
It definitely enhances the game. I don't know if it's to the same extent as those examples, but it enhances the game significantly.
Well, I think the question is, would you play the original now that you know how to play the second? If you're not around new people.
Well, I would, first of all, it's going to be a pain to remove them from the mix. So for that reason, I don't think I'd ever play it without.
Just like
because
it's
a nuisance to take this back out. Because yes, there's ways to go and identify them, but it's not clear. You'd have to go through everything and figure out, okay, this one references attacking, so take this one out. And you'd have to do that with the treasure tokens, the missions, the cards. They do have distinctly different starting hands decks. You've got the wound deck and then your standard deck. So it is easy to define that and identify that. But, apart from that, the rest of it is going to be a kind of a pain.
Yeah, so I mean, overall, I think they did a great job with this expansion. I do think if you already own the game, you definitely want to get the expansion, especially if you liked it, right? With that caveat. I highly enjoyed it. Let's talk about scoring now. So, like I said, I think it's better now. I think they did a great job with the expansion. I think they really did well. A lot of times, sometimes expansions seem kind of clunky or doesn't fit well. That was not the case for this. We didn't find anything clunky as far as the gameplay goes. Rules, maybe. Last time, just base game, I gave it 8.75. I'm going to tip it to a 9. I think this gives it a little bit more, and it's just what it needed to get there. What do you think?
Given the rules, I mean, if it weren't for the fact that the rules are still
this is about
ambiguous,
gameplay.
I understand, but that impacted the gameplay. We had to stop several times during the game to try to figure out how do we handle this particular situation. If they clean that up, I'll go ahead and move it to a 9. I'm still keep sticking with my 8.5 until they fix that, because the rules are a mess. I understand your feeling. I'm the one who has to decipher.
It's so true.
And it turned into several times we had interruptions in the game that extended the game because we had to figure out this particular situation where two people are standing on the same spot, what happens? And it was very painful. Going through the rulebook, not finding it, going on to online, not finding it, and then just having to figure out, okay, how are we going to handle it? Because it was getting late, and we were expecting to do this review last night, and it didn't happen because of that. So given that, I can't go any higher than the 8.5. I still think it's a great game. I'd like to see it cleaned up and to make it more of a smooth, streamlined process.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Definitely look this game up. We'll catch you guys later. Bye.